Yo, wagwan people, my name's Toons, welcome to my channel, and on this channel I'm going to be showcasing many more tutorials, so look out for them in the near future. I guess you heard the beat preview at the start, so let's get into how I made it and let's break it down. When I started this beat, I started with a bell one shot, and it's this right here, bell 12, which I made myself, and it will be available soon in my kit that I'm working on. And here's the pattern for it, and I'm working in the key of C sharp minor, so this is what it sounds like. Now when I first started making this, these are the two notes I started off with, C sharp and G sharp, and this is what it sounds like. Then after that, I added these three top notes, which was A, G sharp, and then C sharp, and this is what it sounds like. Then after that, I started to program in the rest of these notes right here. Now, with this bell one shot, as you can see here, I click the tempo, follow tempo right here, because when I originally made this bell one shot, I was working at the BPM of 100 BPM, and I'm currently working in 140 BPM. So any sample you're using, and the sample's in like a different BPM to what you are working in, when you click this, it puts it back into time, into the original BPM that you want to work with. And then you see this option here, speed. It's like you can speed it up and slow it down, but it would still be in time with the project tempo. After that, I added an EQ, and I took out quite a lot of the lows. I took out everything below 190 Hertz, and I've done this to save space for my kick drum and my bass. And after that, I added the portal, and I used this preset right here from Accent Essentials, and it's this one right here called Swang. And then my dry and wet 23%. Then next I use the H delay from Waves, and these are my settings right here. And then my dry and wet set at like 39%. My feedback is at 60%. Now this is what it sounds like with all the effects on it. Yeah, and as you can see, all those effects, especially the portal and the delay, has added some texture and some more vibe and a bit more bounce. I added another bell, this one right here, which I made myself, and I used the same technique in the previous one where I clicked on follow tempo. Once again, as you can see, I made this at a different tempo, and it's on half speed, and here's the pattern for it, and this is what it sounds like. And then I added some effects. First was an EQ, once again taking out the lows, and this time I'm taking everything out below 260 Hertz. Then I've added the portal, and it's the same preset as the previous one that I used in the other bell. Also again from Accent Essentials. The link for this sound bank will be in the description box below. And then I added H delay, and these are the settings for it. And my dry and wet is on 44%. My feedback is on 60%. And this is what it sounds like with all the effects on it. And this is what it sounds like together. After that, I added an accent called Last Stand, which is from the sound kit Accent Essentials, which was made by Trophies. The link for that will be in the description below, so check that out. This is what it sounds like. And then the effects that I added there was a sound shifter, which was just pitched up one, just to pull it back into the original key of my song. Then I added an EQ, and as you can see, I've took out quite a lot of the lows, everything below 560 Hertz. Then I've added Valhalla Uber modulation, and this just gives it like a chorus feel and some texture. Then I've added some more delay, and my dry and wet's at 33%, my feedback is at 60%, and this is what it sounds like with all the effects on it. And this is what it sounds like all together so far. Then I added another accent. This is the name of it, pad_25, which was from the sound kit Cercinus Volume 1. Now essentially it is a pad, but I've used it as an accent. And once again I've clicked follow tempo and it's on half speed. Here's the pattern for it, and as you can see here, I've played it as a chord, but I've just took out the middle one, which would be E. So it's C sharp and G sharp, and this is what it sounds like. Then I added some effects. I added a gain plugin just to give it some more volume. Then I added a portal, and I used this preset right here, which was from this library called delay. After that I added another H delay, and here in my settings, once again my feedback's at 60%, my drawing width's at 44%, and I added an EQ, took out some of the lows below 214 Hz, and this is what it sounds like with all the effects on it now. And as you can see there, it just makes the sound a bit more interesting and gives it some more texture. And then the delay at the end just gives it like a little bounce. And when I play it with everything else, this is what it sounds like altogether. And as you can hear now, like the sample, it's starting to build out now. Next, I added another accent, which I found in Contact, and it's the sound bank called Cloud Supply. And it's this one right here called Sheep Horn, and this is what it sounds like. And the only effect I added to that was an EQ, and I just took out everything below 234 Hz. Next I added a synth, which was also from Cercinus Volume 1, and I used it in the sampler. Once again, follow tempo, and the speed is on half, and here's the pattern for it. So these are the notes I'm using, C sharp and B, and this is what it sounds like. And I added an EQ, took out quite a lot of the lows, everything below 462 Hz. Then I added a portal, once again used the same preset from Accent Essentials, this one right here. Then a delay, and these are my settings. Once again, feedback's at 60% and my drawing width's at 44%. I will say though, be mindful of this analog knob right here, because if it's on, you'll get like a hissing sound, and the best thing to do is turn it off, and then you won't get that hissing sound anymore. After that I added a limiter, and this is it right here, and this is what it sounds like with all the effects on it now. And now this is what it sounds like all together so far. Then I added this flute, which I found from Crux Audio, cinematic Middle Eastern flute, and the link for that will be in the description below, and this is what it sounds like. The first effect I added was a compressor. Now I added this compressor to help control the dynamics. When I say dynamics, I mean the difference between the loudest and the quietest part of the sound. Next I added a sound shifter just to help pull it back into the key of the song. Then I added an EQ just to help take out some harshness above 1K. Then I added Valhalla Uber modulation just to add some chorus to the flute. Then a portal, and I used this preset right here, 7 Soul from Accent Essentials. So I added some reverb. My mix is at 60%. As you can see, I've got quite a long decay. Then I added the limiter. Now this is what it sounds like with all the effects on it. And as you can see there, like it really brings out the sound. The flute feels more alive. And when I play with everything else, this is what it sounds like. Then just to finish off the sample, I added some vocals, and these vocals I got from Arcade, and this is the Arcade sound bank that I use, and this is the name of the preset, and this is what the vocals sound like. The first effect that I used was an EQ, took out quite a lot of the lows, everything below 530 Hz. Then I added this vocal bender, and I used the formant, and as you can see I've gone -6 semitones. Then I've added Valhalla Uber modulation just to add some chorus to it. Then I added the crystallizer, and this is what it sounds like so far with all these plugins on it. Another EQ, took out more of the lows, and I've took out some highs here. A delay, and the drawing wet's on 14, and then my feedback is at 60%. Then I added a kickstart just to add some rhythm to the vocal, but this is what it sounds like with all the plugins on it now. Now this is what it sounds like together now. Next, I added some perk loops, and I got these from a producer named Only One. The link for that sound kit will be in the description below, and this is what the perk loop sounds like. Then I added another perk loop, this one, and this is what it sounds like. So with the first perk loop I added some effects, and the first effect I added was a sound shifter, and I pitched it up by 1 semitone. Then I added some EQ, took out quite a lot of the lows, everything below 560 Hz. Then some Valhalla Uber modulation just to add some chorus. Then a H delay, my drawing wet's at 16%, and then the high pass is at 362 Hz. I didn't want anything below 362 Hz to be coming through, but I've taken all of that out. Then another EQ, and as you can see I've just shaved off a bit of the highs there, I just felt it was just a bit too sharp on the higher end. And then for the second perk loop I added an EQ, took out a lot of the lows, everything below 1k. Then I added some reverb, and the mix is at 16%. So with both of them together, this is what they both sound like with all the effects on now. So with all my melodies together, this is what it sounds like. Next, I added some basses, and the first bass I added was this 808, and I used it in the sampler. Now I got this 808 from Splice. For this 808 I put the glide to 64, and I put the mode to legato and polyphony to 1. So I've done this so that I'm doing like all the glides and stuff like that. When I just press one note and then I press another note, it glides into the other note instead of it playing like 3 and 4 notes all at one time like I'm playing chords. And here's the pattern for the bass, and this is what the bass sounds like. And as you can see here, I've added some distortion, some overdrive. This is Logic's own distortion plugin, and then some R-Bass. This is Waves' own like distortion plugins. So I've added 2 different types of distortion just to enhance the bass some more. So if I turn them both off, this is what it sounds like without the distortion on it. With both of them back on. See, it just adds some harmonics and just really thickens up the bass just a bit more. Next, I added a synth bass, which I got from this plugin right here called Signature R&B plugin, and this is the bass that I use. It's called Lady Bass. and here's the pattern for it, and this is what it sounds like. And the only effect I added there was some dimension, just to make the bass just sound a bit wider. Then I added another bass, which I got from Serum, and it's this preset right here, Bass Funk Mode. I got it from this library here. Here's the pattern for it, and as you can see it's just one note, but this is what it sounds like. I added some tail chorus, and then I added an EQ, and as you can see here I've took off some of the highs and I've took off some of the lows, and when I play everything together, this is what everything sounds like now. Yeah man, that sounds hard man. Now let's move on to the drums. First thing I like to start with are the snares. This is the first snare that I started with, and this is it right here. It's called Medicine, and I got this from Splice, and this is what it sounds like. And as you can see here, I've used the velocity just to help give some variation and some bounce to the snare, so not everything's just hitting the same velocity. I used to play the drums every time like I was hitting the snare and the hi-hat. I wouldn't be hitting the snare and the hi-hat the same every time. There would always be a difference, and that is a human feel. That's what I'm trying to emulate here. Basically just change the velocity on certain notes. It gives the drums like a human feel. Then I added another snare, this one right here, and here's the pattern for it. Here it is right here, and this is the snare that I used, EK snare. Once again, this is from Splice, and this is what this snare sounds like. I added an EQ, and for this snare I took out quite a lot of the lows. Then I added some reverb, and this is what it sounds like with the effects on it. Then I added another snare, which is here, which comes at the end of the 4th bar. Here's the pattern for it, and this is just like a snare roll, and it's this one that I used here. Once again, this is from Splice. I added an EQ. I took out everything below 280 Hz, and it's also panned to the left, and this is what this snare sounds like. Then I added some snare rolls, and here's the pattern for it, and this is the snare that I used, once again from Splice. And I added an EQ, took out quite a lot of the lows again, and this is what it sounds like. Next, I like to add hi-hats, and here's the pattern for the hi-hats. As you can see, it's just a 2-bar loop, so this is 2-bar, 2-bar, and I've just repeated it, I've just kept it simple. The hi-hat is this one here, and I got it from the ATL Culture Kit. The link for that will be in the description below. And then I added some effects to those hi-hats. And the first effect I added was an EQ, took out quite a lot of the lows. Then I added a halftime, and this is what this hi-hat sounds like with the effects on it. And as you can see, adding the halftime has just given the hi-hats just an extra bounce. It's subtle, it just sits right underneath the main hi-hat. And as you can see here with the halftime, the mix is at 11%. Now I've put it 11% because I don't want it to be like prominent within the mix. I just want it just to be sitting under the main hi-hat that's already there, just to add some bounce and a different variation. Next I added another hi-hat, and it's this one here called NASA, and here's the pattern for it, and this is what it sounds like. It's just a 2-bar pattern, and it's just looped. Sometimes that's just the simplest way. That's what I find for myself anyway. And also I've panned this hi-hat to the right. And then last I added a kick, and I got this kick from ATL Culture, this kick here. And here's the pattern for it, and this is what it sounds like. So when I play all the drums together now, this is what all the drums sound like. So now I will play everything together, and this is what everything sounds like now. So as you can see here, I've laid out my tune, the way that I do it, I do a change every 16 bar. So as you can see here, this whole section here, from the 17th bar to the 33rd bar, all that's a 16 bar. And then when I move on to this section here, as you can see, I've made some changes. So I've taken out the perks here, taken out the hi-hats here, taken out some of the melodies as well, and some of the bass. I like to make these big changes after each 16 bar, but then at the end of every 8th bar, I've got these little change ups right here, where I've taken some things out, and see like the kick here, I've taken like the last bar off. And I do that just to keep the beat just interesting. So at the end of every 8th bar, there's a little switch. At the end of every 16th bar, there's a little change up again. I lay the beat out and just repeat it again. So all this here, this is a 32. So once I'm happy with that, I just copy and paste it again. And that's how I just lay my beats out. So for the intro is just the 16 bar again. The first 8 bar is just parts in the melody. And then the second 8 bar, I introduce some more elements. As you can see here with this 8 bar, it's just those melodies right there. And then the second half of the 8 bar, I've added the perks, I've added the bass, and then it drops into the full song. So now I'll play the beat from the start, and then you'll hear how it transitions into its different arrangements, and then you'll also be able to get a feel and the vibe of what I've created. And that's the end of the tutorial. I hope you liked it, I hope you enjoyed it, and more importantly, I hope that you learned something from this. Until next time, peace out.